Good afternoon, Professor Brock. This is Rourke, and my presentation is going to be on the town of Douglas from a public health perspective. So, first section that I'm going to go over is the demographics of my town. So, the town of Douglas has a total population of 8,794 people as of in 2018. It's 2020, so you could probably round up about 8,800 people. It's not a lot of people considering the area of my town is bigger than every other town around us, and they have about at least double the population of ours. Um, so our population per square mile is 242 people. It's not There's not a lot of people per square mile. Average age of the residents living in Douglas about 42 years old, and average age by sex is 41 and a half for males and about 42 and a half for females, which is pretty close to that age average. Um, and something interesting that I found when I was researching my town was the racial data for Douglas, which consists of 95.3% white people and 1.3% Asian and 3.4% others, which I found pretty interesting. Just consider, I just didn't know that my town was just so much white, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just didn't. I just That was just something new that I learned. Then you can look over to the right of the slide, and you see the population by age. And what I want to point out is the 40 to 50 range, the 50 to 60 range, then the 0 to 20 range. What this tells me is that there's a lot of people having kids and raising kids in Douglas due to the amount of, it's almost 30% of 0 to 20 year olds and 40 to 50 year olds. Um, that's more or less what that tells me. Is that people come to Douglas to raise their children, mainly because Douglas is a small population but large in area size. So people who want to raise kids out in the woods, they can buy some land, maybe 6 acres, and raise their kids there, where they have access to the outdoors. And what this also tells me is that a majority, which I'll touch on a little bit later, that a majority of people who move to Douglas and live in Douglas are all middle to at least middle upper to upper income earners, because Douglas has high tax rates, and in order to be able to afford actual and buy land and be able to move to a town like Douglas, you need to be in that bracket of income earning. So in terms of the board, my town, we don't actually have a public health department by name, but we have a board of public health, which has some of these following duties. They do a lot of inspections, primarily on commercial swimming pools, food services, housing units, recreational camps, and septic systems. Um, and I know for a fact that there's only one commercial swimming pool in the town, and it's down the road from me because it is a small water slide water park thing that it's, Breezy Orchards, I think, is the name. But that's the only actual commercial pool in the town. And in terms of food services, there are 3 pizza places and 2 actual restaurants in the town. So it is also, in terms of housing units, there aren't actually any um, subsidized or assisted housing units within the town, or if there are very few and far between. So in terms of inspections, the Board of Public Health doesn't have that many to do. Um, in term, they spend probably a lot more time on other duties, such as um, not just rabies prevention, but their water treatment. They operate the water treatment plant, solid waste recycling and transfer station, and they do a lot of septic system installations and repairs. So the Board of Health operates the town transfer station, where residents can bring their trash, recyclables, and other solid wastes for disposal. They do charge annually. It's a $200 fee annually, which feels like a lot of money, especially considering how much residents pay in taxes in Douglas. But that's what we got. So residents can go there. They can dispose of all their trash, recyclables, paper, plastic, cardboard, metal, glass, and also get rid of things like couches, TVs, similar items that are non-hazardous materials or don't contain hazardous materials. So the Board of Health also runs a biannually or annually, depending on demand, clinic for pets for things such as rabies and other vaccinations that are required by the town. That's also held right down the road from me, and we go there pretty much every year. That's when they have it to get our dog vaccinated, and just get her license renewed. But yeah, so generally you need to either go there or the vet in order to renew your license for your dog in the town. Conclusions based on the demographics data. Based on the last few slides, Douglas consists of mostly white people, mostly upper income, mostly upper income uh, levels of like people. Douglas also consists of mostly young and middle-aged people, which means that people are moving to Douglas where to raise their children when they're in their like late 30s, early 40s, raising their children, and then by the time that they hit about 60, they leave the town. Because Douglas is a very nice town to live in growing up, but it's not nearly as as nice of a town if you don't have the children that you're raising. And that's not the only reason that people move to Douglas. It's a nice town in general, but from the data that I could see, that was the conclusion that I drew. So my review of the Board of Public Health overall, speaking in broad strokes, I think the Board of Health does a pretty reasonable job in assessing public health risks. For I'm just going to focus on COVID because it's the most recent public health event that has occurred. Um, on the Board of Public Health website, they have a lot of pertinent information regarding COVID and where to go for COVID testing, and they also have information from the CDC, the state, other doctors on their site. Um, as much information as you could possibly need in order to make an informed decision on what to do during the COVID pandemic. And as the COVID pandemic's kind of grinding down, they still have all this information available in the case that some outbreak were to actually happen. So yeah, they provide ample information regarding COVID and other town public health issues, the transfer station, rabies, mosquitoes, mosquito-borne illnesses. They would, if there was a sanitation issue with the water or the sewage treatment plant, they would post something there too. Um, and any information that the Board of Public Health doesn't have doesn't have the answers to. Like if you have a question, they can't give you the answer, or you can't find the information. They will just direct you to someone who can give you the information or the answer that you need, which is pretty good, I think. The COVID response. So, in terms of the COVID response, because of Douglas, it's such a small town, we have no large stores, we don't have a community center, we don't have large areas that people would actually gather and congregate outside of churches. There's no there's no reason for people in Douglas to congregate in areas because there's nowhere to do it within the town. So due to this, and because COVID spreads person to like close contact, relatively close contact, and person to person, there was really not a large impact from COVID on the town itself, outside of some businesses having to shut down due to state regulations. There was really no direct impact from the actual disease on residents of Douglas. Um, what the Board of Public Health did do is they made a large amount of information publicly, and it was posted in public areas where who to call, where to go for information, and ouch, where to go for information, how to access their site, how to get information about COVID. They made a lot of this all publicly available. So from what I had read, um, the town was pretty much prepared for a large outbreak of COVID. Should it had it actually manifested into a large outbreak, the town was very much prepared for it. Um, as the town is pretty much is fairly well prepared for a lot of things, not limited to pandemics, but uh, winter response, all for storms, all that. The town does a fairly good job at responding to not just pandemic, but other um, emergency management and public health um, and public safety risks as well. Interagency cooperation. So, in regards to how well the town departments work and talk with each other, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So, like on the one hand, because of how small of a town Douglas is, all of these agencies do they don't fall victim to the whole silo effect that you had mentioned earlier in the semester, where all of these agencies work within their own little box and they don't communicate with anyone. Where because Douglas is so small, and um, all these agencies do talk to each other because they don't have to deal with large departments. Everyone knows each other within the town. Like Joe Schmo down the street, you know him, and he works at the hardware store. If there was a hardware store in Douglas, he works at the pizza place. Joe Schmo works at the pizza place, and you're a cop. Or John Smith is a firefighter, but you're neighbors with him, so you, due to the fact that everyone knows each other, it's not really a big issue within the town of the agencies not cooperating and speaking with each other. So everyone really knows what everyone else knows, if that makes sense. And then on the other hand, due to how small of a town Douglas is, and the fact that really nothing happens in this town ever, um, should something actually happen, it's one thing to be prepared for a disaster or a pandemic or a tornado or what have you, but it's another thing to actually be able to work off of the plans that you have and it be actionable. So, should something happen, it remains to see if the town would be prepared for across all departments and how well they would respond to that. So, in all the time I've lived in Douglas, there have been less than a handful of public health issues that have occurred. A couple examples of these where there was a boil water order maybe 5 years ago, 5 6 years ago. Extremely rare for it to occur. The mosquito-borne illness warnings, that was kind of unavoidable, but they made public as much information as they could. They still have information available going into this summer, should mosquito-borne illness be a major factor this summer. But one major recommendation that I have for the Board of Public Health is to start making use of and having an online presence in order to be able to reach more citizens through particularly Facebook and Twitter, because you can only reach so many people through the town forum and their website, but you can reach a lot of people through Facebook and Twitter, because you can just have citizen residents like your page or follow you, and then they'll have almost instant access to any information that you put out there for a public health risk or a spill, or if something is starting to occur in the town, you can reach out and you can tell the residents, like, hey, this is happening, avoid this place or this area. So that's like my big takeaway, is that they don't really have social media. So the use of social media would be a major improvement on the amount of people that they can reach. So yeah, pretty much in conclusion, so while there's not a whole lot going on in Douglas, and even less going on in terms of public health issues or emergency management issues, um, can Douglas do more? Absolutely. Any town can always invest more money into mitigation measures or preparedness measures, because there's that statistic that it's every like $1 of mitigation measure money invested into mitigation is equates to like $6 or something like that of response funding. So I always think that you can invest more into preparedness, though. Um, are the current measures that the town has in place sufficient enough? I would say yes, because the town is doing a pretty good job during not just from a public health perspective, but you never hear about. That's not correct, but from the research that I've done and what I've been able to dig up, the town's pretty prepared for most emergencies should they occur. But like I said earlier, you can always invest more in public health and emergency preparedness. Um, but yeah, so Douglas, the town of Douglas itself, we don't really rely as a citizen. We don't really rely that much like on the town for assistance and help and whatnot in the case of like we rely on public safety to in the public works department to plow roads and whatnot during the winter, but we don't rely on them should power go out to deliver food or um, medications or shelter. Um, a majority of residents in Douglas are we're all like relatively like self sufficient. We all we all keep reserves of food for the most part. We're all reasonably prepared because of how big of a town Douglas is and the fact that most people own land. And it's not like you can just like shout over to your neighbor, "Oh hey, can I get some help over here?" You'd actually have to like walk to your neighbor, like walk like maybe like a quarter mile or something, or like a half mile to your neighbor to like get help or something like that. Where I don't know. I think that Douglas has done a fine job. I think you can always invest more. You can have better communication. You can always update your plans and put more money into it. But does that really like is that really backbreaking? No, it's not really at all. Like they have all the frameworks. They have everything down. So yeah, that's my takeaway. Like I think Douglas is doing like a fine job, but you can always improve. Yeah. So yeah, that was my presentation on my town. It was a little long-winded, I think, but I got all of the information that I wanted to cover into it. So yeah, thanks for sitting out this presentation. Thanks for the fantastic semester, and yeah, thank you.